Start screaming. That's the best way.
Sammy, leave all of this stuff in.
I have a template for how to start your podcast if you want.
Start it right there. My guest today is Stephen G. Pope. He's the CEO and founder of SGP Labs. They're a content accelerator and media company. And we're going to dig into that as we go. Cool. But Stephen, I always start these by asking my guest to describe how it was that we met. And just before we started, before I hit the record button, I was saying that I've kind of been following your content on LinkedIn and other channels and asking you questions about your, the way that you create and distribute content, which is obviously what you do. So that's kind of like to give away how it was that we met. But the way we lined this up was interesting. So why don't you tell that story for us?
Well, ultimately it's just like, I can't remember if it was LinkedIn or TikTok first. Ultimately, I saw that you had a podcast, and I knew that we were going back and forth and just interacting online. I can't remember if it was LinkedIn or TikTok, which was first. And then I was just like, hey, let's have a conversation on your podcast. I'd love to be on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a good testament for people to understand that aren't really, if they're kind of sitting on the sidelines with content, it's kind of good just to kind of know how these things kind of develop, because a lot of people are used to the networking group, and it works very similar to that. It's just online, right? So it's just like a networking group that's online that scales. And I just created a conversation, and that's what you can do with people that you're connected with, and you see their content, and that's how we're sitting here today.
Mm-hmm. Well, we originally connected on LinkedIn, and we had a little bit of back and forth, but the conversation that led to this was on TikTok. And I have a confession to make. It was actually my assistant who said, hey, this guy, he messaged you about your invitation for guests on your podcast. So I had to go into TikTok and look. And I think that's kind of like a maybe a window into how I use TikTok a little bit. So
it is interesting to see.
Maybe a bit of an admission. Yeah.
No, I think it's good. Yeah, it's good to see those insights, because we have our own perspective of like how these things should be run or are run, and so it's interesting.
It's a segue into what we're talking about today, because a lot of the stuff that I see of yours on TikTok in particular is about the incredible content automation engine that you create for yourself, and obviously I think by extension for your clients. So that's got to be the first question is, you take this stuff to a level that it has so much detail that I almost, it can be a little intimidating. So I want you to kind of explain it for the viewers, primarily founders. How do you make it work, and how do you make it look so damn easy, man?
Yeah, well, just for some context, I am a software engineer. So before I got into content, so I have a background in technology. And it is interesting as well. Like, I have a lot of people that have said that to me, like throughout the months and years now that I've been doing this. Hey, that looks almost like intimidating or overwhelming. And so I've actually like absorbed a lot of that content, and I'm always trying to like simplify it. But in a nutshell, all this really is like, when I started creating content on LinkedIn, it was hard. It was just like a pain. And so I just started developing my own little tools. Like I started using Airtable just to really start organizing things, and like just keeping track of links and folders, and then starting to create those folders for me, and then working with the team and doing automations around communication, and then integrating that with like some of the popular tools out there like frame.io for video editing and all this stuff. So it really just kind of evolved out of that. And I actually just released a new product around this, just literally like this week, and people have already installed it and are using it, which is pretty cool. But it all revolves around like, how do you automate the content creation process from the beginning to the end, the planning, the creation, the repurposing, the team communication, and then the distribution, and then even looking at those analytics and bringing those back into your planning process. How do you automate and streamline as much of that as possible so that you can focus on creating value and running your business, or maybe even hanging out with your family from time to time?
Sure. Yeah. That's what we want, right? Is to buy our time back, but to also find a way to show up for this kind of stuff. I have a note here to ask you about how long you spend every week creating new content, but I think that's like, maybe 1/5 of the actual question and the actual answer, because you talked about, the automation and distribution and things like that. So how long do you spend every week creating new content? But then what's the split with, I guess getting mileage out of it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit different for me in some ways because like I'm creating content for courses and videos all the times. But if we were just to like really focus in on like creating like my YouTube video and like writing up some text posts that go along with the videos that I create, it's a couple hours a week, and I've really been able to dial that in pretty specifically. And so, I mean, short answer to your question, a couple hours a week, and then I'm obviously interacting online a lot, creating videos for courses and stuff like that. So I'm not including that because I think when most people ask that, they're like talking about the social content, because I
Right.
repurpose everything. I'm recording this podcast at the same time that I'm on here, so I'll be able to create clips from it. And I record client calls, sales calls, everything, so that I can pull content out of that, and I'm not actually a part of that process.
Yeah, I think maybe it's important context for any viewers that don't know Steven, that it appears as though he spends all damn day creating content. I mean, the way you make it work is something else, right?
Well, I have spent. I mean, like I always like I have spent a lot of time creating content. So but at the same time, I'm always trying to optimize it. And where I am now is really a journey, right? So, so in all fairness, I have spent a lot of time in front of the camera and learning and developing stories and messages and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, I have been able to build up this kind of system to really just keep a steady flow going.
Yeah. On the topic of the steady flow, how much of what you create would you call like new ideas? How much of this is just fresh ideas, and how much are you repurposing the stuff that maybe the stuff that's been successful in the past?
Yeah, so I do both. Like, so one of the main reasons why I like going on to podcasts is because the questions are coming at me. So, when people create their own podcast or they go in front of the camera and they script something out, it's like you're creating the questions, you're running a podcast. There's all these things that go into that. And so a lot of the times people are just asking me questions, and I always pretty much consider that new content because I'm always coming at things from a slightly different angle because the person asked it a slightly different way. But at the same time now, like I have so much video that me and my team are going back into old content and just pulling old things, rearranging like the order of those clips, starting them in different places, ending them in different places. I have a whole like where I'm at now, I have like a whole other plan of where I'm planning on going with all of this, because I've seen other trends where creators are creating multiple accounts and coming, so I have a whole new plan about going into content or my previous content and just reusing it in all sorts of different ways and publishing all that stuff. So and then as well, like I still do selfie stuff. Like basically the way I look at it is like anytime I create something new, develop something new, I'm just going to create a video about it, a new video, and just really kind of document what I'm actually developing or doing with clients. And so that's kind of how I balance it, because it can be overwhelming to be just producing all this new stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I guess if there's one thing that we have in common is that we want to help people understand that it doesn't have to be so intimidating or so time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be really intentional about it. And it's really like this duality, right? Because the one thing is like it's interesting because I'm helping people create a lot, but you still have to create good stuff. And you can't sacrifice that in the pursuit of reducing the time or uh, you know, creating more content or creating systems. It still always comes back to like good content. I actually just released a video today about what is content creation going to look like in 2025. Because I was thinking ahead, I was like, man, there's all these new tools coming out. It's like they're making it easier. You've got Descript, you've got Riverside, you've got AI. They're all helping us produce more and more, right? So we're all going to be Gary Vee soon, and there's going to be so much content everywhere. Plus, all the people that are still sitting on the sidelines are going to come in,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like the only thing that's really going to differentiate everybody is going to be good content. And and I think that's also why TikTok has been popular, because they're finding good content and putting it in front of people's faces. Whereas a lot of the other platforms, they're just showing you your friends and your family and or the big creators that have already been there. And so TikTok is a good example, like where they've really focused in on giving people what they want. And so you're going to have to be able to create really good, engaging content for it to actually work, especially going into the future.
Right. I didn't have this question queued up here for you, but you, if you're thinking about what does content look in 2025, and I'm just quickly thinking through, obviously there's a nod in the direction of the AI tools and things like that. Is what you're saying is that the humanity piece that cannot be replaced by AI, or at least not yet. There may be an AI version of Jordan hosting this podcast in 2025 for all I know. Um, and already I think we're at a point where there could be maybe not quite as human and engaging, but is that what you're suggesting? Is that the more human and the more I think you get what I'm driving
Yeah.
at here.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that has always worked, right? The authenticity and the being human. But I also think having really good, like engaging content, if you're a professional, like that's like the real subject matter expertise, stuff that just can't be faked, right? If it's in different industries, it's going to have to be entertaining or funny or moving or inspirational. But like it's going to come back. Like there's always these like ebbs and flows in the marketplace, right? So right now it's like everyone wants to be everywhere. And so soon the market and the tools and all the products will make that possible. And then now everyone's going to be everywhere, and then it's just going to be like, oh my gosh, like how do you sort through it? And what's going to happen is the technology is then going to make it possible for people to find what they want, as
Right.
opposed to having to watch everything. And again, that's why I think TikTok has been successful, because they show you what you want, good or bad, right?
Yeah. And you tell
and
it what you want to see more of. Yeah.
and that's what's going to happen, right? So we're going to see so much content out there that the people that are going to win are the people that really start to just focus in on making the really good content and not getting distracted with that. And the only reason why I get so focused on that is because I am one of those people out there trying to help people do a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that sometimes people come to me and they're like, hey, how can I be everywhere? And sometimes they haven't even created a video yet. And so it's kind of a weird duality, but I'm like, hey, like before we do that, let's make a really good video. Let's make
Right.
$1 from your video first before we try to scale you all over the place.
And I want to talk about that scaling piece for sure. Like that's on my list to talk about, and
Cool.
comparing, I guess, how you do it to how I do it, and bridging that gap, because there's tons you can teach me here. But in the interest of creating good content, and because I know everybody's wondering, you mentioned TikTok a couple of times. What I want to know is, at the moment for you, what is the most successful social media channel in terms of driving new business for you?
For me, it's TikTok and YouTube. And YouTube has been one that's really started to work really well for me. I'm just about to hit 2,000 subscribers, and it was right when I started to hit about 1,000 where I started to get like a steady flow. Because every time somebody books a call with me, I say it's just free form. It's just like I don't make you pick something. I say, where did you find me? And TikTok YouTube is now on there. Interestingly enough, Facebook popped on there now, which is so weird because I just started posting there, like literally within the last couple of weeks. And I have 0 following there, but I'm posting on the Reels. And those Reels are having the same reach that TikToks are, which I didn't. The Facebook
Wow.
Reels, not Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels.
Wow.
But it's TikTok and YouTube for me.
Just out of curiosity, the full length YouTube stuff or YouTube Shorts?
Yeah, the full length stuff.
Huh. Okay. I've found terrific reach with YouTube Shorts, but that's maybe a little tangential.
Yeah, for me, that's kind of gone up and down. I haven't been able to figure out what the rhyme or reason is to that yet.
I don't have the traction on TikTok that you do, so I think that's maybe a key differentiator too. And I know that you're very pro TikTok, and I think part of that is, a certain amount of first mover advantage that you have there, where it's still the Wild West, and billions and billions of eyeballs every day, and so the people who are out there and doing it are reaping the rewards.
It
Maybe.
just seems like the one platform where like you can go there and grow pretty quickly. Now, I think you have to put the right content out there. So like I repurpose a lot of content on there, but it isn't the best performing stuff. The best performing stuff is when you do something a little bit different. Like if you're Joe Rogan and you repurpose a video there, it's going to go viral.
Yeah, right.
Every time. Or if you're Alex Hormozy or whatever. But like for guys like for me, like, but they are nurturing people that have followed me, so they do work, but they don't usually have the same power. It's usually when I do something where I'm showing my screen or showing a system, showing something that is truly different than what everyone else is doing. But if you can hone in on that and do it, it works really, really well.
Right. Let's talk about the repurposing stuff.
Yeah.
I will preface this by saying that my system is I record these. I have a podcast editor in London, actually, who
Cool.
creates my clips for me and the full episodes, exports the audio, the whole works. And then I have a virtual assistant who takes those and puts them in various places. The only thing I do is name the episode. And when I initially post them to LinkedIn, I'll add a little bit of contextual texts to go along with it. She will repurpose them for the various other channels.
That's cool.
How does that? It is cool, and it works well for me. But it's a ice cube off the iceberg in terms of compared to the media empire that you've created and the way that you're able to disseminate the stuff that you have. So I want to compare my minuscule system to your.
Well, I mean, I don't want to, like, what you have is awesome, right? It's working. So number one, like you put those pieces together and it works. And so sometimes like when people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to do more, I'm like, well, what's wrong? And they're like, well, nothing's wrong. So, but I think the key difference is just that I've really streamlined that whole process. And so much so that like your podcast editor and video agencies are actually starting to reach out to me and implement my stuff so that they can build out their own video agencies. Right. So like, I'm just trying to optimize that whole piece so for someone like you, like if you were spending the amount you want and you're producing the amount you want and you're fine with it, you might say, well, I'm not going to mess with it. If it's giving you what you want, then, maybe don't mess with it. But if you wanted to reduce the cost or do a lot more, then you could think about what I've talked about. Because all I'm doing really is just streamline that process, creating all the folders, creating links so everybody knows what they do, creating the team communication. So sometimes when people are just hiring out their work to other people that already have their own business, it's in a way like you're not doing a lot. So like, you know what I mean? So it's really helping people that want to bring this stuff in-house or do a lot more, do it cheaper, that it really kind of starts to add a benefit.
Right. Let's talk about how it is that you do it with SGP Labs on your side, in particular, the team, and how, take me through the workflow of a piece of content and how it passes through various team members.
Yeah, cool. So what's going to happen right after I'm done here, I'm going to take this video, I'll throw it into a program called frame.io. And then what'll happen is frame.io is going to magically pull that down into a tool called Airtable. And it's going to build out all of the folder structures that I need to facilitate this workflow. And then my team will go in there and start to chop it up and then drop it back into the system. And all of those chopped up pieces will be pulled back into the system and organized and coordinated with that episode. And then Chat GPT will start to, well, actually something else will transcribe those videos. Chat GPT will then take the transcriptions and turn them into a social media post. And then I can go through and just clean that up really quickly. So like the doc, so like that transcription is created into a Google Doc and all that stuff is kind of linked together, right? So nobody's doing any of that work. So the transcription and the Chat GPT and the creation of the document that stores all that,
Yeah, I'm
just
curious
all,
about that bit, and I don't want to interrupt you because you're on fire here. But
it's all good, man.
how does it go from whatever it is, your transcription tool, to Google Docs to Chat GPT? What's the automation there? Is that a webhook, or how does that go?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We can go into the nitty gritty if you want.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Let's
So
do.
so like quite literally what will happen is that when that goes into frame, it will trigger a Zapier automation
Okay.
that will, number one, create a record in Airtable saying, hey, there's a new video. Here's a link to the video. Here's where it's all stored. Here's a folder to it. It will create a Google Doc for it. And then it will also trigger off an automation to go create a transcription, all in this one automation.
Wow.
And then when that transcription is done, it will trigger another one that then tells ChatGPT. It just basically says, hey, take this transcription, which is pretty much not a social media post, right? It like
Right.
starts
Yeah.
somewhere weird, it starts somewhere, or it ends somewhere weird, and it just says, hey, rewrite it in the same tone, but structure it like a written piece of material. So it does a fairly good job of doing that, of just kind of restructuring it so that, and especially for me because I'm dyslexic. So like if I look at that transcription, I just have to rewrite the whole thing. I can't really take that. But if ChatGPT goes through and rewrites it, then I can clean that up and make it my own. And it's kind of already in my voice already. So then that Zapier process just then drops that transcription back into that Google Doc.
The Chat
And
GPT clean version. That.
the
Yeah.
clean version.
Right.
And then what's cool about it is that if you know anything about Airtable, it's like a spreadsheet on steroids. And so you have all these columns and rows and whatnot. So you have rows for every single piece of content. And then you've got all these columns, like one's linking to the document, one's linking to the folder, one's linking to the video that's in frame.io. And then you can create all these different views to create workflow. So I can say, this video still needs copy approved. This one still needs a title. This one still needs video approval. This one needs a thumbnail, right?
Yeah.
And so it's collecting all this information in one spot. So you have a hub for all of your content creation from beginning to end. And then it will actually, once everything is approved, I've integrated with a platform called AirShare, which is basically like a Buffer or a Hootsuite for developers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it literally just takes all of that stuff, packages it all up, and sends it straight out to social media. So you don't have to like download it and re-upload it and all of that stuff.
Wow. Okay. I drop his name from time to time, but it's Sammy, my guy in London, who takes care of the clips and stuff for me. And Sammy, you're keeping this in. Let's have a conversation about Airtable and about the future. That Zapier automation is something else, because as when I say, oh, well, I do it this way, we're going in and out of Google Drive with the clips and moving it from, I personally am manually downloading and re-uploading to channels and things like that. And as is my assistant and stuff. And yes, it's somewhat handy that, we can cloud host this stuff and work, this trifecta in Europe, South America, and Canada. But what you're describing and the level of automation there, and even having a tool tell you you're missing a thumbnail, you're missing and again, that's my assistant saying, I still need a headline for this episode. I still need, the thumbnail.
Exactly.
Is this the correct, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so it just like puts all that stuff on a silver platter, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I just released a course that shows you how to put all of this together. And it's at like a stupid dumb price. So you guys take a look at it. I'll give you the link. It's like, and I had a bunch of people just like complete it in like a day. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, all it is like, I'm an engineer. So every time I was going through all of these little things, I was just like, I know how to like do this. And like, I know how to connect it up to Slack. So when these things are happening, when these things are getting approved, or when they're unapproved, just shoots off a message and says, hey, new video is ready for review, new video, or this video needs editing. So I just kind of pieced it together like I would have, any other program. I was just solving my own program or my own problems. And like, I didn't actually intend to build this the way I did. Like, I was just creating a lot of video. I saw what Gary Vee was doing. I was like, I want to do that. And I started doing that, and it was really hard. And then, and so now where I'm at is that you can also create all these really complex workflows. So you can say, hey, when I record a YouTube video or when I do a podcast, I want to make sure that I promote it here, 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 into this community. And it keeps track of all those as like little to-dos so that you do them all. And then it's also like, this is getting a little nuanced, but it's also keeping track of all of the call to actions. So
Nice.
like if you post the podcast, right, you got that link that you always want to get back to. So it's keeping track of all those so that when people do the posts, all those are there as well. So now I'm at the spot now where I'm like, hey, now that I have this, like this structure, now I want to start to do what a lot of those other bigger creators are doing, like Joe Rogan and some of these other people that have like multiple accounts. Like I almost kind of think of it as like you have your primary brand accounts, which is like, at Stephen G. Pope. But then you see like people have all these other accounts where they're pushing even more content and then getting even more exposure. That's not like a good example, not love him or hate him, like Andrew Tate. Like you probably saw him
Hate
come
him.
up on TikTok, but from like 30 different accounts, right? And that's like a whole nother challenge that I'm starting to think about. Like, how do you do that kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you see it on YouTube where people have like the second channel with,
Right.
behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I think, that's what you're getting at a little bit.
Yeah. Facilitating that. And then like even that the next level after that. Cause like once you can master 2 channels, like a third and a fourth isn't that difficult if you think about it. So like if you have the system I'm talking about, then having your team actually just go back to previous episodes and like take different approaches to clips that you already created, starting them in slightly different spots, cutting out this, making them shorter, making them longer.
Yeah.
It's not a big ask if you've got all this stuff categorized properly, because
Right.
you can just go back and open up those projects. Like I don't know if you use
of mentions of certain things and
because you have it all tagged, you can just get back to it. So like if you've ever used a tool called Descript.
yes, that's what we use. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like the Descript project has a link to it. And so when I drop a video into my system, when we pull that into Descript, we'll link that project. So in Airtable now, we have every piece of content that we've ever been on, whether it was my podcast, my YouTube video, a guest appearance, and it has a link to that Descript project. So you can just go back to it,
right,
and just like rework it, find new stuff. Because it's like you've probably already created enough content to do what you want to do, but there's this like pressure to always create new stuff. Like you couldn't possibly just go back, but you can. So like there's all these like unwritten rules,
right,
just because we only know what we see other people do.
Yeah.
And it was actually I think this is kind of interesting. I had a client and they were showing me stuff. I was like, whoa, like they were showing me stuff about this how they were doing this multiple channel thing on TikTok. And I was like, man, I didn't even I don't know why I didn't think of that, but like your own brain locks you into what you think you can do. And so when I saw that they were doing this, I was like, oh man, I could do that. And it's just really interesting. I couldn't do it without my systems because it would just, the wheels would fall off. But if you're organized, you can do it.
Fair enough. Yeah. I love the nuance, by the way. I don't know if it's just the way my brain works. I'm sure other people do too. And maybe we are going way deeper inside baseball than most people want to
I think it's actually pretty helpful though, because I think it's good.
Yeah. And I guess like that's what we're saying, I guess, to a certain extent, is you get to a point where you find something that works for you. And, if you were aspiring to be Gary Vee, then yes, you got to go a couple layers deeper and find ways to automate and do more and, multi-channel, all of those things. I want to go back to something you said about Airframe and how it automatically pushes out your content for you.
Oh, AirShare. Yeah.
AirShare, pardon me. Do you have any like best practices around, I guess, first of all, platforms, but also posting frequency, time of day, things like that? And people always ask about that sort of thing. Should I be posting at a certain time of day, or how much of a difference does it make, and how much does your data telling you?
So what I have found, it really depends a lot on where you are in your process. So, and we'll go all the way back to the beginning, right? So if you're not posting much, or if you're not posting at all, none of those things matter.
Right.
So like, I did a video about this the other day. It was like, sometimes I have clients where they sign up and they're working with me and they buy all this fancy equipment and they get it all set up on the weekend. And then on Monday we're recording. And that's really cool. But if the fancy equipment is going to keep you from recording, then it doesn't matter and you shouldn't worry about it. And you should just get your cell phone out and you should start recording a video. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with the posting times and all of those other questions, because like, if you're not posting at all, like whether you post at 8 or 12 or whatever, I don't think it really matters. If you're posting a lot, like what I have found, and I want to explore this more as well, is, staggering your posts a little bit, like especially on a place like LinkedIn is going to matter. Like if you post several times at the same time on LinkedIn, one of the posts is just not going to do well. So you want to give quite a bit of breathing room. The same is going to go for a place like YouTube. On a place like TikTok, I have found that you can dump a bunch of videos and it doesn't matter. But I'm going to continue to experiment with that. I think stuff like that is like, you're never going to like really like nail down some specific thing that lasts very long, because all those algorithms are changing as people start to
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. Like I always saw somebody on LinkedIn was saying that they're actually my next podcast guest cool. was saying that they're seeing much higher impressions and much less engagement. And that sounds like an algorithmic change that's trying to take popular content and show it to less active people. That was my reasoning anyways. So the goalposts are changing all the time, I guess, is the lesson, right?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. LinkedIn is a weird one. Like, I don't know why, but that's become like my least favorite platform. Partly because it's like, I don't know. It's like, they don't promote video very much. And like, I'm heavily invested in video. And it's also one of those platforms where I find like a lot of the people that are engaging there are just, it's all a lot of the same people. Whereas where I find on like places like TikTok and YouTube, you have a lot of people that are going to those platforms to learn something, to be entertained. So they're going there for their own purpose. They're not, a lot of the creators on LinkedIn are going there to sell something. And so you have this kind of like environment where it's just a group of people selling stuff that are all talking to each other.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like if I sound judgmental, I don't mean to be. It's just, I like creating content and interacting with the people that are interested with that, as opposed to just kind of like that feeling of how LinkedIn feels to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's assume there's somebody watching this that wants to put themselves out there, hasn't taken that next step, hasn't, filled the Amazon shopping cart full of the stuff that they think that they need. What advice do you have for them to, I guess, get them over the fence and to put themselves out there and to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to do is to think about like how you can help people and serve them, and how you can like articulate a point such that it will create a knowledge gap for someone, right? And I think if you focus in on that, it becomes easier to create, because you're not focused on any of your own insecurities, which is what tends to happen. Like, what are you passionate about? Like, how can you articulate something to really help somebody, so that when you post that video, you feel like it's going to make somebody say like, wow, I'm glad I saw that. Because that's what you want, right? When somebody sees your video, You want them to walk away and be like, wow, I'm so glad that I saw that video. I'm going to go show my friend this video. So like the goal should be that people are sharing your stuff, because the most of the time people want, what I find is most people say, hey, I want to post a video and get new business. And that's I want that too. That will happen, but that's not necessarily scalable until you are more known, right? But what's very scalable is when people are sharing your stuff to other groups and to other people. That becomes very scalable. So if you focus on making content that would do that, then it's a lot more tangible to sit down and create a good piece of content than it is to be like, I'm going to get 1 million views, or, like those aren't things that you can control, but you can control the good content. Like I had Kajabi, the course creator platform. They reached out to me on LinkedIn and they were like, hey, we saw somebody posted one of your TikToks into our Facebook group. And I'm like, wow, that's really neat. I mean, think of how much more credible that video is being posted into some group by someone other than me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you are that founder and you have no equipment, what's the first thing you do?
You just grab your cell phone.
Yeah. Write a script or just roll tape. Sorry, tape. I went to media school. I actually physically used to razor cut tape.
I mean, I think a script can be helpful, and like, it kind of depends on your personality a little bit. You can write down a script, and with modern tools, like if you are using the TikTok app, you can literally record it in like little chunks. So like like for me, if I read from a script, I'm going to screw up.
Right.
There's no way. Even I've recorded thousands of videos. I still can barely do it without messing up. And if you mess up, then what's going to happen is you start from the beginning. You mess up 3 or 4 times, and now it's been an hour, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to quit, right? So if you script it out, that's fine, but just record it in little chunks. If you watch a YouTube video, if you watch it, you'll notice that it's all spliced together. It's because the creator that was reading that video, he screwed up, and then the video editor just came in and chopped out all the mistakes.
Sure.
So, but if you don't have an editor, so like if we're going down to that person that has no editor, they only have a phone, script it out, get into the TikTok app, record it in little chunks. The app will even let you take out the mistakes, and then you can just post it. Yeah. If you're able to get through the whole video without a script, then more power to you.
I always maybe this stuff comes somewhat naturally to me, but I always just cool. when I was scripting, it would be like a recipe card with just keyword prompts, so that
that's a good way to do
it. It was like, oh, that's right. I have to remember to talk about that one thing, and my eyes might look away, and I might even look at my recipe card, but editing that out is dead simple, right?
That is a good way of doing it. Those keywords, right?
Just to remind me what the heck I promised.
And it might actually come across as a little better, like a little more authentic, because it's like you're not reading it verbatim. Mm-hmm. But if you're reading a script, you literally can take the script, you can put it right underneath the video, and then you could read. You can look at the line, and then you can look into the camera, and you can say it, and then you can read the next one. And the video editor can pull that out, and it will splice together better than you would imagine.
Right. This might be off topic based on what we talk about. Get out your phone, record, right? But just before we wrap up, I thought I would actually ask you about the equipment. I think I can see an Elgato key light in your you got a handful of lights.
Oh, well, I don't have an Elgato key light.
Okay.
I could actually kind of show my studio. Like,
let's dig into it. I think if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Yeah. While you're swinging the camera around, I'll say I do have one key light, the Elgato key light. I've got this Audio-Technica microphone that might have cost me about $100. I'm using my cell phone through Camo Studio and OBS. So equipment, very minimal, very, and this is, I would consider myself kind of like somewhat advanced compared to what needs to happen. Yeah. But surely you're on another level as well. So I am curious to see the studio.
Well, actually, I'm not. You know what I wish is like I can't change the camera while we're recording.
Right.
Because I could actually show you a video of the studio because I have a camera that would let me show you that.
Right.
Um, but we'd
You
have
could
to
just
stop the.
talk us through it though too. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I've got a big key light that's over here. You can actually kind of see it
yeah,
right
yeah.
there,
Hmm.
which is probably a taboo. Like somebody that's like even better with lighting and video. Like I don't think I'm an expert there. I just know enough to like make my picture look decent.
Hmm.
But like somebody would probably look at that and say you should get rid of that reflection somehow. I haven't spent the time to figure out how to do that. But this is, I think they call it a light dome, a light dome. It's a
Okay.
or there's a Godox. It's called a Godox. It's a SL60. And then there's this it's got the that kind of filter that sits on top of it.
Yeah.
That's the one that kind of makes my face a little brighter on this side.
Hmm.
And then I've got another like, and you can see my reflection over here.
Yeah. Yeah. The
This
fill
one
light,
just
yeah.
like that way it creates a little bit of a shadow on my face.
Yeah.
And then I've got two Lumix G7 cameras, which are really very inexpensive. Like they're not DSLR, they're mirrorless cameras.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So they have a really good picture, but they're only like $600 each. And one of them is
Lumix
horizontal.
G7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Panasonic.
Hmm. Yeah.
And one of them's horizontal. That's the one that everyone else is seeing.
Hmm.
And then I've also got another one that's vertical off to the side.
Yeah.
So it's getting like a high res vertical version that I can use for clips.
That's the stuff
then
we'll
I've
be
got
seeing later this week.
Yeah. And then I've got another one that's kind of off to the side over here that kind of just provides a little bit more light.
Yeah.
I don't know if that one's really necessary or not. So like, I would actually hope that some of my like vagueness about how I've set this up could be inspiration to people. Because like, I'm not a lighting expert, a camera expert.
Sure.
Like that's not
That's not the point. Yeah. Yeah.
I am trying to make it look good. Like I that is important. Like the quality of your stuff, but not if you're not on at all.
Right. Don't let it be a barrier to starting.
And I use OBS like you do, because that's a really cool tool. And I've got a few other tools here.
Price is right.
And it works really well. Like it's like you can run a live show and
green screen
and all that stuff. I used the green screen for a super long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a little easier for me to control the environment with the green screen. I'm just waiting for my son to come by here and eat a bowl of cereal in there and behind it, but that hasn't happened yet. What does we've been at this a while because I could talk to you about this stuff all day. But what does a typical client? I know you sell courses, and I'm gonna buy that one that you mentioned. You put that link in front of me. I'll pay for it. What does a typical client engagement look like for you? And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I really work with people in two ways. Like you're not really creating video yet, and you want to start creating video and make $1 from it. Hopefully more than $1, but you get the idea.
Right.
So in that one, I'm really focused on getting you up and running, producing good video, and then it just so happens for the people that are creating, that want to create a lot more video. They're either building it, they've gotten on video, they've got that part mastered, and they really want to scale that up. So you're either a video agency, you're like a personal brand that really wants to scale, or you're like a YouTuber. Then I have what I call the content engine database, which is a little bit more on the technical side of stuff that maybe you shouldn't worry about in the beginning. Like if you're just getting on video, this is probably like going to get you way distracted from what you should be doing.
That's the Airtable and the Zapier.
All the Airtable stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm the latter rather than the former, because I have been
for sure
producing video for a while, but I'm just definitely interested in how to, I think, get a little bit more mileage out of the creation time and to be able to pass that knowledge along too. Right. I think
for sure.
That's a key part of it.
Yeah. I thought it was super interesting that like, I started attracting all these different types of people for my content. So people that wanted to build a personal brand, but then I had all these content agencies.
Yeah.
Like, and like really like young
They're already
kids
doing
and stuff.
it.
Like who are like, like there's like on TikTok and Instagram, there's a lot of vertical video agencies basically
Right.
where they help you create vertical videos. I help you do that too, but I help you learn how to do it.
Right.
Where there's a lot of done for you agencies out there. And I had an influx of all these people coming to me, and it was just super, like, it was so unintended. And that's also an interesting part of social media too. Like if you go out there and just talk about what you're doing, you might develop a product that you didn't even know you had.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what I did.
Yeah. Your market tells you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
There's
you just
a
had all
lesson
these
there
people who
for
were like,
sure.
hey, I'm an agency. Can you help me build out your system? And I was like, yeah, I can do that.
There's an analog there with, because I sell to software clients, right? But that there's often that pivot that happens where it's like, we didn't realize that we were building a solution to this whole other problem that the market decided that they wanted us to be the solution for. And we had, a completely different market in mind or a completely different user set. And yet it's like, no, you got to follow the money. Everybody over here is saying that they want you to be this thing, or they're hacking it to solve this problem that you didn't think about.
Yeah, that's why it pays to talk about what you're doing and like following your gut and not following what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Which is so hard, right? Because you see somebody, like, I remember when I first got onto LinkedIn, like, and this is my own mistake, but you see someone's tagline, and you're like, oh, that's a cool tagline. Like, I'm going to make my tagline like their tagline. And like that, obviously that's the worst thing you could ever do, right? Like you want to ultimately connect with people you care about and work with them and figure out what they want. Because the best taglines, I think, kind of write themselves. Like they're literally just like what your customer said. And you're just like, okay, that's like, it's usually it's like, it works way better when it's like really short, says exactly what your customers say you do.
Right.
And is kind of unique to you, right? That's what's so genius about the internet, is that you get to connect with this. We have the ability to connect with smaller subcultures than we ever did before. So you can have that niche service and connect with enough people to sell it, where you might not have been able to do that just if you were only in your hometown, because there wouldn't have been enough buyers. But now you can create that niche service and connect with enough people around the world to make the product viable.
Right. But first
And
you got to show up.
You got to show up, and you have to be willing to say that unique message for it to proliferate.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's unique, it will. It literally will. People will talk about it. But if it's the same thing that somebody else is doing, it will not.
Yeah. And that's a great place to wrap. Stephen, thank you. As I said, I could do this all day.
Yeah, this was a good one. I liked how you went into all the details, because a lot of people won't push into it.
I like the details, and I think that's where I'm at. Right? Is I want to get on that ninja level where go a little deeper, and realistically speaking, I'm gonna probably put 10 to 15% of what you taught me today into action in the next step. Cool. Not 100.
Nice. That's
well,
good.
We'll see what the course teaches me, right?
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that, but get better every day, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you. I just changed the price, but I'll give you the early bird price.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You said it was a crazy price, and I was like, well, then I'll commit.
I was just telling my wife right before I got on this podcast. I was like, podcasts need to do one of two things. They either need to get like a little more controversial, where all the conversations aren't like just like, going back and forth with just like everything is agreeable.
You expected us
or
to
they
say,
need to go way deeper into like things like the details.
Yeah.
Because it's so surface level, like with some stuff. It's like you can't take away anything meaningful.
Sammy, there's a great clip there. Podcasts need to go deeper.
I mean, especially now, right?
Yeah, exactly. When we could be, and I mean, in 2025, we're going to have AI versions of ourselves hosting these for us, right? Yeah. Thanks again, Stephen. Really appreciate it.
This was awesome, man.
All right. Take care. We'll be in touch. Right. Bye.